Earth was invaded by galactic invaders. Their ships are incredibly confident, shining and glistening and full of hovering. Over towns were advanced weapons. As though they were superior than their viewpoint, Earth's military was insignificant. However, a dust particle is easily crushed. The invaders had something under their boot. Huntek had just landed on planet Earth with the technology to conquer many universes, each with defenses that are significantly better than anything technology could be gathered by humanity. Earth was decades ahead of them, and they believed they had conquered the planet, was unavoidable at the start of the invasion. The aliens soon came into contact with Earth. Elite scouts are a tiny yet incredibly talented troop of soldiers who received training in the worst circumstances in which they were proficient covert ambush techniques and utilizing technology to its fullest. The only actual opposition to the vices, the aliens, would confront the invaders. Rejecting them outright, they believed human strategies would be absurd in the face of such a powerful force. The invaders made fun of the scouts' dependence on outdated technology, such as firearms and explosives, figuring they wouldn't be able to for their weaponry that use energy, and force field's haughtiness in their major military targets were assaulted by aliens. Installations that first give the scouts confidence would be destroyed without causing any perspire. But to their astonishment, the humans could continue to move without talking. There wasn't as much opposition as they had pictured. The scouts operating in tiny, coordinated groups had previously developed in tens. To maximize their scarce resources, they utilized the topography of Earth to their benefit, of concealing themselves in woods, stunning urban ruins, and mountains quickly and slipping back before the invaders could respond. But they were outmatched. The extraterrestrial was harassed by the scouts, armies achieving little triumphs here, and the aliens continued to refuse to take their leaders seriously, felt no need to change their approach, certain that Earth's opposition was only a bothersome issue that would quickly give way under the strain of their first superior firepower. For the invader, significant interaction with the forces of Earth was to them, the aliens are a murder. Devastating energy bursts that were released destroyed structures, leaving nothing but behind them smoking craters. They anticipated that the scouts would fear and withdraw, considering the overwhelming devastation. But instead, they encountered the invader with silent defiance. Scouts were aware that they couldn't compete with the aliens. A direct battle between aliens led to their adoption. Hit and running techniques that strike from the shadows of the trees. They utilized the darkness as a cover to launch swift, accurate attacks that create disorder within the invaders' ranks. In spite of the efficiency of these strategies, the scouts had to regroup after being forced to retreat to prevent additional foreign casualties. Relentlessly laughing at the pitiful resistance thought their triumph was impending, what they were unaware of. But did the Earth Scouts have anything that the invaders were never able to expect? Someone who knew how to take advantage of the aliens during the night. Although technology was strong, its absence, intimate familiarity with the topography of Earth made them at risk. They misjudged the scouts, and that reduction in size would incur significant costs. As the aliens pressed, moving ahead without noticing the storm that was ready to strike them, Earth Scouts started to get ready for a pivotal moment that would cause the invaders to wonder everything they believed to be their knowledge. Combat was not going to be merely explosive or even silent. There was going to be another war. A reminder that when you undervalue your adversary, whom you must confront, repercussions you didn't anticipate. The adept in night vision had long been a mystery to the remaining scouts. In silence, meticulous, and laser-focused, they were renowned mostly for their unparalleled ability to use the shadows to the other scouts' advantage, but depended on their education and experience. The night vision specialist equipment developed a special set of skills. Their knowledge wasn't limited to the technology, which they understood. When the sun set, the battlefield. When visibility turned into a tool, and simultaneously, Earth Scouts' weakness demonstrated their ability to harry the stealthy invasions. But now the Walmart network was prepared to reverse the trend. Initially, the invaders hadn't even taken note of the professionals' potential belief that the powers of Earth could only appear to work in the daytime, to prevent people from realizing that a good darkness could be used by a ready soldier as a battering ram. Then, when the extraterrestrial forces moved forward, they discovered that they were looking away from numerous guerrilla fighters. The skillfully disappearing into the shadows started snatching stragglers and causing hostile supply routes with eerie consistency. The accuracy that the aliens mainly depend on their sophisticated sensors and weapons found it difficult to pick up even the smallest indication of human existence in the shadows. The emergence of night vision specialists didn't merely changing methods, which totally messed up the aliens' invasion tactic. They told me I was a huge bully and I was full of shit and could be worse. From an extraterrestrial perspective, the aliens' position was physically simple enough to conceive. But then, they structured their technologies that could detect heat by scanning Miles's signatures and energy outputs. Nevertheless, the specialist had mastered the art of adapting while staying hidden. Current technology on Earth in ways that even the most sophisticated invader systems might come upon the equipment used by the professionals, permitted them to move undetected and in silence, utilizing a mix of thermal damping and the capacity to fit in with their environments with the degree of expertise they had. The outcome that the invaders had not anticipated was, in their unsettling calm before the storm, tries to compel a definitive conflict that the invaders discovered they consistently outwitted one another. As the expert in night vision married havoc, the extraterrestrial forces were emerging from the shadows, compelled to reconsider their presumptions. Their advanced technological apparatus, able to locate and eliminate dangers in the majority of circumstances, appeared ineffective against an adversary who recognized the topography in the cover of night so thoroughly the aliens, as their annoyance increased, they deployed countermeasures, additional scanners and sensors, and more advanced weapons to draw the elusive scout out. But no, despite their best efforts, they were unable to sufficiently swiftly adjust to Earth's wraths. The scout's unorthodox warfare depended on fast strikes and deceit. Up until today, but the specialist in night vision brings something much more deadly, where others may have hurried: patience. Before entering combat, the specialist awaited the ideal time. They realized that, in the period of darkness, was both a threat and an opportunity. The aliens would become impatient now, as the aliens would become impatient in the future, later. And if they could work this game out properly, their systems would break out and their spirits would crumble, prior to even become aware that they were being outperformed. The invaders were so used to taking control, their target became uncertain about their subsequent action. By the moment they tried to change their approach, it was too late. The specialist has obtained crucial information about its shortcomings, the design of their factors, and even the manner in which they discussed. The Earth Scouts were now not merely reacting to foreign developments, they were controlling the course of the battle. The invaders' assurance was deteriorating as they became aware that Olsen and his boys were closing in. They could see the half-blooded beast of the mountains behind, and that together they could fight its enemy. They picked up where the worm had left off, and they were ready to assault an enemy who was aware of their constraints more effectively than they did. The specialist in night vision wasn't merely, they were prospering and surviving by exploiting the basic aspects of evil that the aliens had dismissed as unimportant. Shift the conflict to humanity's advantage. The aliens had misjudged Earth's powers, but it was nighttime. Eyesight specialists' proficiency and application of unusual strategies that actually broke the invaders' faith in each and every action. The invaders' action appeared to backfire, and each action they performed could lead to further drawn into a trap by the darkness. They were unable to see, much less flee. The armies of Earth had discovered a means to interfere with the dominance of technology. Once, invaders had depended on it, and it was the specialist in night vision, with their control over the dark, that had demonstrated the creatures that the planet may far greater than they could have ever envisioned. The real benefit of nighttime on Earth eyesight technology wasn't limited to eyesight alone. It was in what it permitted in the dark. While the invaders were there, humanity blind the extraterrestrial forces, who depend on cutting-edge weapons and dazzling energy-based systems, were unable to respond to the accuracy and subtlety provided by Earth's straightforward yet efficient instruments. Where the invader advanced technology provided them with a bodyguard, it left them feeling invulnerable, susceptible to the very thing they ignored their incapacity to provide: manageable shots, or send missiles to course for short distances. They were too used to the war, too strong and too proud to witness their own technology's limits. The night vision equipment on Earth is far from matching the aliens on an equal basis. High-tech weapons had emerged as the dominant equalizer, but the aliens were dependent on strong energy signatures and scanners to monitor and eliminate dangers. They weren't ready for the strategies. The scouts were used by Earth's military, the capacity to move covertly and vanish. It was made possible for them to appear in plain sight, using a mix of night vision and optics and a thorough knowledge of the terrain. The specialists and the other scouts modified these instruments to generate heat signals and produce the sophisticated extraterrestrial scanners are useless to the intruders. Seemed as if the Earth's forces just disappeared into thin air before striking unexpectedly. The first major setback when the invaders, incapable of locating the human forces across, thought they were only hiding that day. Or retreatment, but when it's nighttime, when the scouts fell, they came to life, and the difficulty that it was possible to keep living if that dark matter were not the same thing. The benefit of their technology turned into evident that the invaders were used to traversing the battlefield with brute force was caught off guard. By their thermal readings and scanners were inadequate when confronted with a human force. Something had become adept at hiding its existence and used cunning to gain the upper hand, which formerly belonged only to the intelligence. The invaders were sliding away. Aliens attempted to offset Earth's benefits of using infrared technology in making an effort to overwhelm the brightly lit location. Although these attempts to divert the scouts were unsuccessful, Earth's forces merely adjusted by utilizing the surroundings and their personal gear to increase their visibility even more. The dark turned become the invaders' ally, were made to play according to Earth's rules. They soon discovered that their own ability was needed much more than any human could. There is a period of time in which everyone considers themselves lost. But after nearly 7 years of installing the dark, the creativity and flexibility that the dark scouts from Earth brought, I thought an alien would take over a world effortlessly, but instead discovered themselves caught up in a conflict they weren't entirely comprehend. That confronting an adversary they couldn't recognize, the night vision technology, didn't only create an even playing field, it shifted the balance as the invaders were hindered by their excessive dependence on Earth scouts, had discovered ways to use technology, to employ the most basic instruments to outwit and irritate them. The benefit of night vision for attackers was that it allowed the scouts to observe that which the invaders were unable to. They were able to read the surroundings, thanks to it, recognize even the smallest actions, and make a planned assaults on the aliens with accuracy. Their advanced technology made this a nightmare, which was intended to rule, lost its effectiveness in a conflict where ability, endurance, and local knowledge, firepower, was less important than the scouts. Firepower was less important than the scouts kept making use of their night advantage of vision. The invaders started to challenge the presumptions they had made, to Earth anticipating an immediate triumph, presuming that their technology dominance would ensure their success, but what they hadn't taken into consideration was the degree of human adaptability. When the invaders arrived at a disadvantage, compelled to adjust to a battle situation fashion they had never encountered in a fall. The aliens' war of attrition has the superiority, but they weren't ready for a battle of this kind, in which the humans' capacity for innovation and adaptation made up for any gaps in technology. The constant attack by Earth scouts kept taking advantage of the weakly vulnerability. The aliens possessed what was previously observed as a small annoyance for the invaders become a significant disturbance. Now that the invaders knew they were losing ground, hurried to adjust their approach, they tried to flood the battlefield with more sophisticated technology, attempting to locate human forces without achievement till date for all of their technological advances. They were unable to stop the Earth. Scouts who used the night to their advantage benefited the night. Vision specialists whose abilities had already shown themselves to be quite valuable played a crucial part in this change. Not only did they see in the dark, but they recognized it and knew how to control the landscape by employing darkness as a tool to attack the core of the aliens. The invader arranges for the experts to use the night. Vision had less to do with identifying dangers. Afterward, it was about joining the beyond round itself. But the aliens had difficulty using their own high-tech human forces. Solutions turned into the invisible but all-pervasive shadows, and ultimately, this ADV vantage that the invaders were never able to defeat. Technology wasn't the only factor in the conflict. It was about knowing how to utilize what could be found in the most efficient as soon as possible after the invaders became aware that they were being outperformed. They were too late for their technology. It was too late to start improving their finances as they had been outperformed. Superiority was revoked by the Pyrosaur. One issue they failed to consider because of human ingenuity. The power balance had changed. The alien systems and armaments were still strong, but they lacked respond to the precision and efficiency of Earth's strategies, particularly when utilized beneath the guise of Dubasha. At night, the aliens were once assured of their superiority, were now apprehended. In a harsh insight, the scouts' continuous use of darkness, with assistance from their technology for night vision, had damaged the invaders' self-esteem. What had appeared to be a minor irritation turned into a major strategic conundrum. The extraterrestrials that had surged across worlds had underestimated without opposition the capacity of Earth to accommodate human forces. Notwithstanding their lack of technical superiority, had the resource in contrast, which the invaders were unable to duplicate: the determination to battle and the shrewdness to employ. Using the environment as a weapon attempt by an alien to overwhelm Earth's brute force scouts had failed. Amazingly, their massive energy-draining attacks that were formerly believed to be unstoppable was rendered useless when confronted with a potentially vanishing adversary. Into the night, the extraterrestrial leaders started to doubt their prior presumptions. They rely on tremendous firepower had brought them to undervalue the ingenuity of, in contrast, their rivals. Their rivals, their scouts, understood how to profit from each weakness, which they recognized. Even though they were outgunned, they could still influence the battlefield by using their knowledge, expertise, and most crucially, their capacity for environmental adaptation. The invaders were unfamiliar with the process. The longer the invaders tried to retake command, the more the equilibrium skewed toward Earth. The extraterrestrial confusion beset the forces, an annoyance with their scanners and sensors, which had previously been their final benefits, were no longer relevant in the face of Earth's slyness. The technology itself they had depended upon to control the system, the battleground was now against them. This change in direction wasn't only a tactical triumph, it was a mental blast. The invaders who had before chuckled now discovered at Earth's resistance, themselves finding it difficult to comprehend why their most cutting-edge technology was letting them down. What they had written off as primitiveness was now their demise. The alien forces made things worse. Undergoing internal conflicts, as the conflict went on, morale started to decline. The idea of a protracted war against a strange planet, up against an enemy they had egregiously undervalued, started to erode the invaders' determination. Earth scouts, in spite of being sparsely distributed, were methodically destroying their self-confidence. The command structure of the invasion started to split, as both officers and troops questioned if their mission was legitimate. They were dispatched to conquer Earth and suppressed, but now they discovered, fighting a conflict they never anticipated, that would need more than just better firepower and night vision. Once viewed as only another soldier, the expert where a group of proficient scouts had developed into an emblem of the tenacity of Earth's, the capacity to strike without being seen firmly in the shadows was now the foundation of human resistance is the expert had permitted. The environmental mastery of the expert had permitted the forces of Earth to remain one step ahead, forward, putting the invaders in a silent, long-term involvement they were sick ready for. It wasn't only the tangible harm that the specialist had caused. The invaders' psychological toll had depended on their personal technology superiority to stay out of trouble. But now, despite their best attempts to find the specialists had turned the scouts into feudal, shown to them that the warrior of Earth were not. They were only using weapons to fight, struggling to adjust their thoughts to the mayhem, and using it as their benefit of the invaders, understanding that their advanced technological solutions were insufficient. Used progressively more desperate actions, they took in an effort to flood the battleground with enormous power, wishing to use numbers to overwhelm the scouts. Although the scouts were instructed in the technique of the invader was ready for evasion. Attempts to corner them resulted in further annoyance each time they believed they possessed the advantage. The scouts would vanish once more, leaving them with the impression that Mulan was. It wasn't more like conquerors than prey. Only their technology's demise that tensed the invaders. It was the understanding that they were no longer able to depend on their prior presumptions, that the fight had evolved into something far more hazardous than they had anticipated. A fight of wits, patience, and talent. The invaders' slow rate of adaptation, enough proved to be their undoing. While they continued to concentrate on technology, Earth's forces employed the simplest instruments to win a battle they was unable to foresee. The invaders had undervalued the tenacity of people, strategic brilliance, and the might of the surroundings the scouts are in, even though outmatched, had changed the course of events, utilizing the weaknesses of the invader themselves against. They didn't win because of technology. It was the capacity for adaptation and thought, and transformed the battlefield into aware. The invaders had no chance of control. The last blow, which wasn't delivered by a one blow, but from a string of coordinated actions that all build upon the war. The capacity of night vision specialists to transform the invaders turned dark into an ally who had believed that they would rule Earth from within, had discovered themselves confined in a scenario. They failed to win the war of attrition. The forces of Earth have already demonstrated that individuals, those with limited mental abilities, can outlast and outmaneuver, outwit their assailants with each. The invaders' attempt to recover control, they discovered they were losing additional ground. Their systems malfunctioned. Their confidence and spirits plummeted. Dissolved what had begun as a conquest, has turned into a struggle for existence. In the end, Earth's advanced technology, or the superiority of the invader weaponry that determined the result. Scouts' capacity to modify their readiness to engage in intelligent combat, instead of difficult in their comprehension that a conflict could never be won by technology alone. The extraterrestrials had misjudged Earth, and they had thereby secured their own destiny. The night vision specialists' fate had demonstrated that occasionally the most basic instruments, when employed with dexterity and ability, could defeat the most sophisticated technology while the conflict continued. To the invaders, expect to quickly conquer Earth, started to lose their original self-assurance, had been damaged by the scouts' constantly accurate hits, and their dependence on cutting-edge technologies appeared to be a liability now. What had once seemed to be a simple victory but became a protracted conflict against an adversary who had outwitted them at each turn. The massive weapons used by the invaders, tall machines and their superior, all of technology seemed pointless when considering the scouts' capacity for adaptation and move in the manner that the invaders had never predicted. The power dynamics moved the extraterrestrials after the peak of military might and technology were now utilizing their superior scanners to catch up, as well as thermal imaging devices made to use a laser to identify and eliminate dangers. Precision were rendered useless by the scouts' proficiency in the dark, and what the invaders had perceived as a basic battlefield has evolved into a location, where each action they performed appeared to lead them into a trap, even more precisely the same. Their strength had been technology, become a vulnerability for them as Earth Scouts. Modified education to function without being found taking advantage of every weakness in society. The more time the extraterrestrial forces systems, the more the invaders fought, the harder they fought. They started to lose the advantage they held. The invaders started to lose the advantage they held. Now, the invaders started to lose the advantage they held. The longer the extraterrestrial forces systems, the more they anticipated that their cutting-edge technology would triumph. But what anticipated was the utter ingenuity of Earth's warriors' adversaries had discovered a method to create an even playing field, not using brute force, but using a wavering dedication to flexibility and inventiveness. Each time the invaders tried to modify their strategy, the scouts retaliated with fresh tactics, demonstrating that the forces of Earth were stronger. In addition to battling for their lives, they were battling with the kind of resolve that occurs when nothing is left to fight. When the internal morale of the invaders started to disintegrate upon realizing they weren't confronting the forces of Earth, a common enemy, despite being outnumbered and technologically inferior, had demonstrated themselves to be resilient, resourceful, and most importantly, the invaders were accustomed to being unpredictable, facing adversaries that either gave up or were quickly crushed. But the manner in which Earth Scouts battled had confused all of their calculations, made while the invaders remained on Earth. The more their self-assurance declined. They had come into this conflict with the idea that they discovered that they were invincible. They had been the most underestimating, an element of the human spirit that is hazard of scouts, when the invaders faltered, took the initiative that they didn't require. To trade blows with the invaders, they were cocky, cynical, and incapable at times. Enough time to compel a retreat each. Each ambush served as a warning to the intruders. Technological could ensure that the aliens would win, had arrived on Earth with the hope, believed their superior strength would take the lead them to an immediate and resounding victory. Rather, they were hindered by strategies. They were unable to counter an adversary that resisted giving up, and by a planet's defenders who were committed to safeguarding their secrets. What did the night vision specialists have? Function in this was not merely tactical. It was emblematic of this person and by extension the forces of Earth. Had demonstrated that intelligence and strategy and the capacity to adaptation was equally as crucial as power, the specialists' mobility invisible to utilize the cover of the reminder of darkness was ever present. For the invaders, they were unable to trust their technology alone. The equilibrium of power had changed, and now rather than it was Earth, a helpless target. The invaders who were defending themselves, battling to keep their foothold. The last blow didn't come in a single assault, but in the knowledge that the opposition from Earth was something the armies were unable to defeat. The invaders artistically lost in the defense of their property. Joan was glad to be part of the rescue. Their trust was dispersed, broken, and their spirits changed. What had begun as an invasion at that time was now a last-ditch effort to protect. What the invaders may have undervalued Earth's determination, and now they were paying the scouts' price. Headed by their specialist in night vision, had demonstrated to the invaders that freedom wasn't constantly aiming for the most cutting-edge technology. It was about understanding your landscape that changes depending on the situation, and never underestimate your adversary. Ultimately, the invaders were compelled to retreat from their technological superiority over the sciences within the group of neuroscientists. The relentless is superior to technology. Earth's defenders' judgment of what appeared as though a surefire victory had, following a humiliating loss, the aliens did not depart Earth with the arrogance of conquerors, yet with the acrid flavor of defeat, with the knowledge that they had been outmaneuvered, outwitted, and finally defeated by a power they had never encountered before, recognized for